So, quick recap. As part of our 10th anniversary celebrations, we're releasing a new single called Sustain in memory of Bell Hooks and Michael C. Ruppert, the two people who both featured on our previous records and who passed away during our 10 years as a group. In the last video, I gave a brief overview of the life and achievements of Bell Hooks. This time, I'm doing the same for Mike Ruppert. Mike was born in Washington, D.C. in 1951 to parents who both worked in U.S. intelligence. The family moved around a lot and ended up in LA. After earning a degree in political science at UCLA, Mike applied to work for the CIA, but turned down an offer in favor of joining the LAPD. While working narcotics throughout the mid-70s in LA's toughest neighborhoods, Mike began to piece evidence together of a major drug trafficking network that appeared to involve both the US military and the LAPD. Everything he believed in up until then was turned upside down. He resigned from the force in '78 and drifted into years of obscurity and depression. Fast forward to 1996, then CIA Director John Deutsch turned up to a town hall meeting at Locke High School in LA. Mike publicly confronted Deutsch, stating in no uncertain terms that his narcotics work in the LAPD had led him to evidence of CIA complicity in drug dealing. Following that confrontation, Mike went on to become an investigative journalist. He set up From the Wilderness, a watchdog publication that outed government corruption from 1998 to 2006. This was the work that led him down the rabbit hole into the world of geopolitics, the mechanisms underpinning our man-made epoch, driven by our disastrous dependency on fossil fuels. Then came 9/11. I was in New York, and had I not been half an hour late for work, my train would have been under downtown Manhattan when Tower 1 collapsed. That day changed many things for many people. There is a cognitive dissonance caused by society's narratives colliding with their underlying realities. We're told stories, and they don't often stack up with the facts. For example, the way the United States is portrayed as a purveyor of democratic values and freedom across the world does not necessarily correlate with the brutal realities of U.S. foreign and domestic policies. I first came to this realization as a teenager by getting to know people who lived through the CIA-backed coup in Chile that ousted their socialist leader Salvador Allende. I heard firsthand how the U.S. government colluded with corporations like Anaconda Copper in order to gain control of resources throughout South America. When Allende expropriated land from wealthy owners and brought mining operations under state control in order to redistribute wealth more equally, the CIA colluded with the Chilean military to stage a coup, killing thousands in the process, including Allende. Those of us who are aware of these things experience this cognitive dissonance almost constantly. Sweeping away the broken fragments of society's facades, we try to assemble a picture of our world that has some coherent basis in reality. This is very much a woolly process of joining dots. Many of us are simply trying to connect dots that we've become aware of, and none of us has the full picture. After 9/11, I experienced cognitive dissonance on a whole new level. It immediately became clear, for instance, that the stated reasons for invading Afghanistan were only a small part of the picture. The erosion of civil liberties through the Patriot Acts 1 and 2 quickly followed with hardly any resistance. The public discourse at the time did not tolerate any questioning of the patriotic fervor. The political climate was stifling and scary. As I began to slowly confront the underlying geopolitical reality leading up to 9/11 and what has happened as a result, I came across Michael Ruppert's lectures. He was joining dots too. Using his investigative journalism skills and his experience as a police officer, he put together the most comprehensive picture of 9/11 that anyone had publicly done at that point. It became his book Crossing the Rubicon, in which he brilliantly placed 9/11 in its rightful geopolitical and historical context. The painfully unreliable 9/11 truth movement tried to co-opt Mike and his work, but he was having none of that. He'd rightly concluded that although there seemed to be U.S. government and Wall Street foreknowledge of the attacks, along with the obvious motives of what 9/11 was used to justify subsequently, and the immense profits made by the Bush administration and their ilk, with Dick Cheney at the center of a nefarious web of orchestration, it was frustratingly impossible to prove anything much beyond that. He walked away and shifted his focus onto the bigger picture, the calamitous implications of both climate change and dwindling fossil fuel supplies. In 2009, he published A Presidential Energy Policy, in which he addressed the elephant in the room. The fact that our entire civilization is reliant on the economic concept of infinite growth in a world of finite resources that we are depleting at exponentially increasing rates. Mike argued that we are almost entirely unprepared for for the imminent transition away from fossil fuels, let alone climate change. And if we do not act swiftly, we will experience the collapse of industrialized civilization within our lifetimes. In early 2010, Mike launched the Collapse Network to help build sustainable communities across the world. The mis- and disinformation movements often attempted to tar Mike with the conspiracy theory brush. Yet even the New York Times had to concede that most of his premises were verifiable. He correctly predicted the financial crash of 2008 3 years before it happened. His advice changed my life. Sadly, 30 years of totally devoting himself to joining those dots took its toll on Mike. He learned the hard way that if you steep yourself in that dissonance for too long, you risk ending up starved of connection, tribeless, and solitary. He understood that the only way that we're going to survive into the future as a species is by recognizing the importance of community and living that truth. On April 13th, 2014, Mike took his own life, but his cautionary tale saved me many times over the years. I had the honor of exchanging messages with Mike a few years before he died. We wanted to make sure we got his blessing to be on our recordings, and he gave it gladly. Thank you, Mike. Rest in peace.